Okay, we lost the connection for a minute, but hopefully opening the doors will help a little bit. How do I see how many people are here? Anyway, figured this would be fun just to show you guys where I'm at installing the Megasquirt at the moment. So I literally just finished chopping basically the entire main harness out, which was a mess. There's some of it laying down there on the floor. Yeah, it is kind of a pain in the ass. Hopefully this will help. It stresses me out, but it might help you out. Anyway, I'm almost to the point where I can start running the harness through and actually getting the Megasquirt in. The Megasquirt is still sitting on a table over here. But there's that. Oh man. I was wondering if I should wait until sometime tomorrow to try and start this thing up live or something. Oh, this is so weird. I've never done this before. No, it really wasn't all that possible. I could have, but I was suspecting that there was a wiring issue or a short somewhere in the stock harness because every ECU I've tried to plug into this thing loses its mind. There's got light on the floor because I was running extra ECU in the car and I had the wrench to switch it out right there. But there's some of what I cut out of it. Now I wire the entire Megasquirt harness still, is the actual harness for it's laying down here. I may try to start it live then. We'll see. My connection's going crazy again. But the best part's just getting to the wires because there's this stupid plastic cover that I think I already threw away that hid all the wires underneath of this clutch line. And that took probably an hour to get everything out of that. Oh man. And then I had to figure out which wire it was for the starter, and I can't remember which one it was, but I got it sitting there. I'll have to try that title then or something. If I put turbo in the title, people will watch it and then be pissed because there's no turbo on it yet. Dark in here. Yeah, I'd definitely be doing that. I'm using the phone. The GoPro's actually sitting right here. I was using it just a little bit ago. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do a two-part video or one giant one because it's all going to be really, really long. Because I've been at this for probably 4 or 5 hours and I've just now finished tearing the stock harness apart. Yeah, I like longer videos are easier to edit too, and I guess it sort of depends on what the content is as to whether a longer video will work. I think for something like this, I could probably get away with about 30 minutes or more and people would still enjoy it. Oh, I made a mess all over the floor in here, and I tried to stay organized at first, but that didn't last very long. I got stuff strung. Yeah, I'm using Wi-Fi right now. I don't know if data would work better or worse. Yeah, I mean, the house is right there, and our router is literally right behind that window. I'm kind of surprised it's struggling this hard to connect. Oh, I was going to come back here. Oh, I was going to show you guys where I want to put it as long as I can stay connected long enough. Flash. Oh, I can turn a light on. Whoa. That's kind of cool. My plan is to, if this thing will stay connected, I don't know, how bad am I breaking up? Can you guys understand what I'm saying or no? It hasn't totally booted me out yet. Okay, you guys can still hear me. Alright, cool. So my plan, if I can tuck back here without losing my connection, is to stick the ECU right here behind, right in front of this, right there. I'm going to run the harness up front following my zero gauge for my battery relocation up inside, and then attaching all of the sensors from there, and basically running it where the factory harness runs. And then having it in here will keep it safe, and it'll be a lot easier to attach the computer and everything to it, because I won't have to run a serial cable through the firewall, which doesn't sound fun to me. Yep, looks like I'm clear then. It keeps telling me bad connection about once every 5 or 10 seconds. Actually, the battery's already back here. You've probably seen the video already, but it's just chilling in the back. I got it disconnected right now so I don't set myself on fire. Yeah, my router is actually like that $30 cheapo one you can get from Walmart, and it does surprisingly well, but I have a range extender hooked up to it as well, but the range extender is all the way at the front end of the house, not the back end. I should stick one out here in the garage at some point, but I don't know if the range extender would be able to do much itself. Yeah, I was pretty excited when the battery fit perfectly right there, because this isn't the stock size battery. This one is a little bit smaller, I think. This one's actually from my friend Nate's Ford Focus. It's his old battery, and it fit back in that little ledge perfectly, because I was originally going to stick it up where I'm going to be sticking the ECU, but I would have had to do more welding and everything to put it up there anyway, so this worked out pretty well. See, Aaron, I'm still trying to figure this whole live thing out because I can't get comments to stay up constantly. There we go. I don't know what alternator's in this. I think it's just whatever came in at stock. I don't know what the stock alternator is. It's whatever the previous owners put in there, and it's actually getting pretty weak because I get a belt squeal on occasion, even though it might just be a bad belt. Let's see if I'll stay connected if I come all the way up here. As long as I don't go behind the hood, I should be fine. Danny, are you down in Florida then? Oh yeah, that's right. This thing's got that 30-second delay. That's why it's being weird. Yeah, man, definitely stay safe. I've heard they're evacuating already, but I'm not sure if what I've heard is true or not. Maybe it's only certain parts that are evacuating for the hurricane. I've managed to stay connected even though I've made it up here this far. I don't know if I dare walk further forward in the garage or not. Anyway, while this thing's been in pieces, yeah, getting it up somewhere with higher elevation is definitely a good idea. While this thing's been torn apart, I've been driving my dad's Speed Demon Cavalier everywhere. The thing's slow, but at least the air conditioner still works. Oh, I made the phone angry. Whoops. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to finish this whole thing tonight. I'm probably going to come back to it sometime tomorrow afternoon to actually finish it, but I'm going to push tonight and get as much done as I possibly can so that tomorrow I've got at least easier stuff to do. Luckily for me, it hasn't gotten very cold yet tonight. It's probably about 55 or 60 out still. Yeah, AC is really nice to have. The only vehicle I've ever had that had it was that Cavalier when it was mine because that was my first car. And then my new daily I picked up supposedly has AC, but I haven't been able to test it out because every time I've had it, it's been too cold to really tell. Oh, I can do filters on this? That's so weird. Oh my god. Danny doesn't like the bubbles. I've been pretty good. I just been really busy lately. I've been working as much overtime as possible so I could buy the computer. I've been doing pretty good though. Been keeping busy on these things as well. This thing, I think it was last week, I put new control arms underneath of it, junkyard control arms, to see if they would help some of the steering issues, and they didn't really get rid of the bump steer, but they helped a little bit, make it a little bit lighter to steer. The bushings in the back end of this car are completely destroyed. Like the one on the driver's side rear on top, the one that runs into the upper control arm, is ripped in half. So the steering knuckle and or whatever it's called, the knuckle in the back just bounces off of stuff. It makes a lovely sound. I've been told that there was a recall on the ball joints in the front of these at one point, and I think this was one of the cars that wasn't taken in for that. Because the one was almost bad enough that I could have just pulled it out by hand. The driver's side CVX, when I was doing everything and taking it all apart, the damn thing, like, whatever's supposed to hold the bearings into the inside part of it that goes into the trans is broken or worn out, so the bearings just slid out of it while I was doing control arms, but they slid back in and I haven't been able to get the axle to pop in half yet, so I don't know if I should be too concerned about it or not. I don't really drive this thing much, so I should be fine. Got the old control arms out in the shed somewhere. I don't know if my flashlight turned off. That's annoying. Did your axle snap or did your ball joints go bad? Whoa! Flash only came on for a minute though. Oh, now it's staying on. Oh, I don't remember what I did with those stupid things. Oh, I stuck them back here. This bushing right here is totally ripped apart. That's one of the crescent arms. There's one of them. The boot's totally ripped open on this one. That one doesn't have that much play in it though. Maybe just this one. They all rusted themselves in place because the boots are damaged on them. One of these was really bad. I bet you it was that one too, because that boot's gone on that one. No? There it is. I don't know if you guys can even see how bad that is. Oh, now I'm picking the whole thing up. It made a lovely sound any time I hit bumps. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is with the CV axles on these, and the CV axles on my car are basically the same as the 4G63 cars, except either side, they're different, they're spline different because the axles are different lengths. But I just slid mine back together and I tried as hard as I could to make it come back apart again, and it didn't. Yeah, I haven't noticed any sounds either. I thought I damaged it at first because thing sounded like a freight train going down the road, but I found out it was just the stupid whatever moisture or shield covers the inside of the disc rotor. I bent it in doing the control arms and it was making noise. The passenger axle leaks fluid. Whoa, I hit a button again. Yeah, the boots on mine are totally ripped up. I damaged the one doing this side ball joint, so it's been tossing grease all over everything. The inside one's still good on this, and then the two driver's side ones are both totally missing. But it's not making noise yet, and I don't feel like replacing them. So we'll see how long they last. Yeah, there's a lot of ball joints on these cars. There's 3 on each front corner, because there's the 2 lower ones and the 1 upper. And then I think the rear has 1 on the bottom. I don't know what that arm is called. I think there's 1 back there, but I can't remember for sure. What sucks about the front 2 lowers, the lower control arm and the crescent arm, is that you can't press the bearings in and out of them. The lowers you can, which is kind of BS. I have to resort to eBay control arms for it, I think. Run into the ground. Like this one, I think, has at least 250k miles on the body. Surprisingly not all that rusty for being from Ohio, but the only rust on this whole car is this giant hole right here and the giant hole on the other side. But everything else surrounding it is solid, which makes no sense to have these giant gaping holes and then everything else perfectly fine, but I'm not really going to complain about it either. See you later, Aaron. Let's see if you actually go to sleep this time or not. Yeah, it seems like the auto parts stores don't carry these, or if they do, they got a special order them. They're like VDP or whatever AutoZone calls it. But I know eBay sells a bunch of these, and they come in kits, but they look cheap as hell. I've been kind of wary about getting them, so I went to the junkyards and grabbed used ones that still had tight ball joints on them, but the bushing on the one I had to put on this passenger side for the crescent arm was kind of damaged. It was starting to rip, but it wasn't totally ripped in half, and it's in better shape than what I had on here to begin with, so I figured I'd run it for now. I've been on here for 25 minutes. That didn't take very long. See you, man. How do I tell who all is on here? I was looking at axles on eBay and I found a seller, and I can't remember what brand it was, but it was a pair of them, so you ended up saving about $20 buying a pair rather than each one individually for the axles. And I looked up reviews on the brand, and it's a brand that one of the like big auto store chains carries them, and they had pretty good reviews on them, and they were brand new ones, not regrinds, which is kind of nice, because regrinds scare the hell out of me. I put a regrind on my Golf, and it lasted about a month, and then I returned it and got a brand new one. Not some remanufactured junk, because they don't last very long. Part of it's just probably the tolerances. They don't tolerate them very well, but oh well. eBay parts are kind of scary sometimes, but I figured if I have good parts to fall back on, I'll run them and see what happens. My car doesn't make enough power to break axles anyway, so I don't have to worry about that, as long as they last a while. Yeah, eBay parts are really, really bad for being hit and miss. Like I've got that one eBay turbo in the house that I bought used from a guy and it's actually in good shape and he said he ran it for about a solid year and then pulled it to upgrade to a name brand one. And you hear about and then it's like my old turbo that I had on the Dakota for a while lasted a couple days even though I think I overspooled it when I wasn't running all the intercooler piping on it. Or I overheated it when the drain line backed up. I need to get that windshield fixed eventually. The windshield on this car, it's got the giant crack in it, and the one on the driver's side part of it, and I don't know if you can see it very well, like sits right in my line of sight when I'm driving. There's giant scratches from when my wiper blade broke on me all over the driver's side, and there's little tiny nicks in it from, I don't know if whoever had this car before pissed somebody off in a truck, and they did a burnout or something in gravel, because there's just chips all over this whole thing. I don't know if I'll be able to find any, like, they probably won't show up on the camera. There's this one right here. That's a chip. And there's the crack. I don't know if I can... Yeah, giant crack, and then right here is where it started. And then there's another chip right underneath of it. It hasn't started to go yet, luckily. I haven't had a chance to go and get it fixed yet because I've been fixing too much other stuff on this car. I need to get a new heater core still too, because it's starting to get cold out. But I don't know if I'm going to even drive this thing that much in the wintertime or not, because it's a DSM and they like to rust. And this thing's kind of low, so it's not going to like high snow. This thing keeps repeatedly telling me very bad connection. It's nice though, because every time it does that, it brings the comments back up. Oh, I had to tear a whole bunch of stuff off the car just to get to everything. I took my rice intake and the catch can and stuff off. I got the ignition coil laying down there. I actually have two ignition coils because I thought my car had a different style plug on it, but it actually has the, because at some point I want to put an MSD coil on here, and I thought mine had a different plug than it did, but I guess it had the same one. Oh man, hopefully I could stay connected because I'm kneeling down in front of the car. Yeah, I mean, I basically had to remove it to get to everything because they give a wiring diagram with everything, which is right here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but the colors on the wiring harness for the Megasquirt don't coordinate very well with the 428 wire harness, where, like the Megasquirt, for example, being the aftermarket radio, the colors are not the same as, you know, whatever the stock harness was. So I had to go and start tracing everything back. And then when I got into where I thought it would just run into the ECU, it had whatever this thing is, I don't know, like some power distributor things or whatever it is, but all the wires ran into that, and then there's another one, or this one, and then some of them ran straight into the ECU, and some wires went all the way back into the car. So I really couldn't even trace everything back and figure out what was what, so I just decided to remove everything basically, and then I got my $2 voltmeter out and started testing wires, trying to figure out what was power and what was switched, and I'll end up having to run new grounds to everything, but it's probably not a bad idea anyway, because the old grounds are probably bad, considering all the issues I had. I've tried, there's two ECUs sitting down there on the floor, and then there's two of them sitting in my shed as well. So I've got 4 of these stupid 95 428 ECUs. 2 of them run like complete garbage. The other one just cuts itself off and opens all the injectors up and floods itself. And then this clean looking one down here kinda runs, but each ECU has this horrible idle issue. I think it was because of either a bad ground or a bad sensor somewhere, but you would tap the throttle and then the idle air control valve would just open completely up and it would rev itself all the way to like 3,000 for about 5 seconds and then slowly let itself back down. But as soon as you touch the throttle again, it would rev itself all the way back up. And it was annoying as hell. And then 2 of the ECUs have a horrible misfire when you first touch the throttle, so it was either a bad like map reading or it was a bad throttle position reading, but I never really figured out which one it was. And that's kind of why I decided just to go Megasquirt, because originally when I was going to turbo this thing, I was just going to stick an FMU on it, but I couldn't get the stupid thing to run right. So this happened. All of this happened. But on the plus side, if I decide to go with bigger injectors, or basically I can do pretty much anything I want with the Megasquirt, even though I may have to send it in to get it modified to do, it's like if I wanted to do individual coil packs on top of each spark plug or something, I could send it in and get it modified to do that. Or if I put bigger injectors in it, all I gotta do is tune it and it can run bigger injectors. I can run boost actually and it'll pick up on it. I think it's got like a 2.5 bar map sensor built into it, because this one's got like what the Megasquirts for the Miatas use, where it's got the one port right there underneath the harness. Yeah, and I don't know if the 4G63s are known for the same thing or not, but the 420As are notorious for ECUs going bad, and I've mentioned it a number of times in my videos in the past, but the 95s, which is what year mine is, has an entirely different plug for the ECU than 96 to 99 had. So, and these tend to be more issue prone, so it's hard to find a working ECU if you can find one at all, which is why I have a collection of 4 of them, because every time I found a car with one, I grabbed it, and I never did find a good one. I wonder if I can get those other 2, because I think they're just sitting in one of my junk boxes in the shed. The original ECU that was in this car when I bought it, it actually ran all right. It had the idle issue, but I just went with Megasquirt, but I don't think that DSM Link does anything for the 420As. I could be wrong, but I would guess DSM Link is probably more Mitsubishi specific, whereas Megasquirt is kind of an all-around, can be used on whatever, which was kind of the appeal to me for getting the Megasquirt, because if I do decide, like if the car blows up and I decide not to fix it and just part it out or something, I can take the Megasquirt that's in it and use it on something else. I could just send it in to get a modification done to it depending on what I decide to run it on, and then use it on something else. ECU, it's one of those AutoZone replacement ECUs. Yeah, that's what mine would do, except it would, when it would shut off, it would just open all the injectors wide and it would flood the piss out of itself, and it wouldn't want to start back up for a couple of minutes after that. And then this one's missing the back. Yeah, I don't know much about DSM Link though. I've heard of it, but I've never even really looked into it that much. But I don't think they do anything for the 420. I think they're all 4G63 stuff. And this one, I think this is the ECU that came out of a Dodge Neon. No, this one came out of an Avenger. The one zip tied to that bracket came out of a Neon, and then this one came out of another Avenger. I have a collection of 4 basically bricks at this point because I have no use for them. I don't know if any of these actually work. I need to test these ECUs in a car that is actually known to run right so I can tell if they actually work, because I would love to help people out and sell these things cheap so anybody else stuck with a 95 can run one of these, because that clean one up there might actually work, and then this one might also work, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll have to see how the 420A likes the Megasquirt. I've got some base maps that I got from a couple different places. One I downloaded on a forum, and then one came from that SimTech place that I was originally going to buy an ECU from and found out they don't exist anymore, but their downloads are still up. And then I don't remember where I got the other one that I've got. So I'm just going to load different maps up and see which one runs best to start, and then my plan is just to use auto tune on it, or they call it VE Analyze on the MS tuner, but I'm just gonna run that and just drive the car. As long as it idles okay, I should be able to get away with just auto tuning it, since it's naturally aspirated. It's not like I have to worry about it building boost and doing anything crazy with the ignition or the fuel. And if it's a stock 420A, and I'm assuming most of the maps I'm using would have been based off of a pretty safe stock map anyway. Yeah, SimTech, they used to make almost is pretty close to a plug-and-play setup for this car, except you had to just make a harness. But I guess they just one day disappeared and quit responding to customers and everything. It's kind of a messed up situation. I went and I found just Dodge Neon forums, or whatever it's called. There was a whole thread where people were talking about how they couldn't get a hold of them anymore, and their website doesn't even say anything about them not being open. The only way I figured it out was when I went and tried to order stuff from them, and it said that everything they carry is out of stock. So I was like, what the hell? So I ended up emailing them and then doing my research on them and found out that they just don't exist. And then about a week later, they actually emailed me back and said, yeah, they don't support anything. So the company's still around. I don't know what they do, but from what I was able to gather, just looking at their website, they do a whole bunch of other like computer stuff. I don't know, like industrial computer stuff. I didn't look into it too much more. I was kind of pissed. Figured I could have at least put something on their website that said that they aren't supporting 420A stuff anymore, but I guess it's too much to ask anyway. Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I looked around for a while trying to figure out what happened, and I found on one of the forums they said that whoever was in charge of their like Megasquirt 420A part was like they just fired him out of nowhere. And then there was on one of the forum topics, whoever was in charge of Simtech's account on that forum was going around and trolling people and messing with people and stuff. Kind of messed up. I'm not really sure what was going on. I think there was a little bit of something shady going on in the business itself. But and towards the end of that forum thread, though, I guess like a year later, Simtech got back with one of the guys because he had actually sent an ECU in to get modified or repaired by them, and they had his ECU and he couldn't get it back from them because he couldn't get a hold of them, and they ended up messaging him and saying that they were going to send it back or something. Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird how they just disappeared all of a sudden and nobody really knew, because they were the only company that made anything 420A specific for the DSM stuff. As with the Megasquirt I have from DIY Auto Tune, you have to email them and get them to modify it for you, and I think the modifications ended up costing me another like 80 or 90 bucks. I could probably look and find out because I got my receipt sitting down here. If I can open it. Oh, I ripped my paper. Yeah, it was pretty shady, but they were really well respected for a while. Like people really liked them, and then all of a sudden they just up and disappeared. Let's see. One modification cost 54, and then the other one cost 25. So yeah, it's that's $1. That's $79. So yeah, it cost me almost $100 to get the modifications done. Yeah, hopefully it was worth the cost for me. But as long as I can get it wired up and get a map to work on it, I should be good to go. And then, because I'm hoping I don't have to take it to a professional to get the thing to run, because that's expensive as well. I've already put over $600 in that computer just to buy it, and then everything else I had to buy to go with it, which is why it's taken me so long to get to this point. One of the things that drove me nuts is Chrysler thought it would be a great idea to put their voltage regulator for the alternator inside of their ECUs. So I had to go and buy this. It's just a standalone voltage regulator for it, which kind of sucks. And then the wiring for the fans, or the fan control unit, is also in the ECU, but I already had that rewired because of course it didn't work. Yeah, it's definitely, like, the money isn't such a big deal, but the amount of time that goes into stuff like this, especially if you're totally DIY, definitely takes a lot, but it's worth it in the end, I think. That's why we do this anyway. Hopefully, this is the most money I have to dump into this thing for a very, very long time, because that's, I mean, even for the turbo kits, it's not going to cost as much as that computer did, which is kind of nice. And I can do the turbo kit piece by piece if I really want to, instead of having to spend all the money at once on that. I have no idea how to tell who is on or not. It says I've got 2 people. Okay, I was kind of wondering, Jamal, because I couldn't really tell who was on or not. I don't know if there's any way for me to look and see who's actually watching or not. I haven't ever tried this live thing before at all. I mean, right now, my daily actually doesn't run. I haven't even shown it on the channel yet. But it runs. It's getting a brake line done right now as we speak. And then I've got to put a new water pump on it. I had to buy a new battery for it and a couple other things. Because I think I mentioned in one of my update videos that it hasn't been street registered since 2013. So that was 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now was the last time it was registered. So it needs a little bit of work on it, but it runs great. And the engine, it's got like 50,000 miles on it, which is pretty cool. But once the water pump is done and the brake line's done, it just needs a tune-up, and it could probably use the entire like pads and rotors up front, and then it's good to go. But the daily, I've been keeping that a surprise still. But I suppose because probably not that many people are going to watch this after I upload it later to the end. I bought another Dodge Dakota. This one I bought is a 1992. It's similar to my old one, except this one is the single cab with the short bed, but it's the same 3.9 V6 and the same automatic trans that my old truck had. and everything in it works still. It's actually been taken care of pretty well. Aside from it appears to be, and I don't know if you guys have heard of it or not, but for a few years back in the 90s, Chrysler wasn't putting primer on their cars or their trucks and stuff. And my Dakota was one of them, so all the paint on the one side is totally missing. Like it sat out in the sun and it all just peeled off. And I've gone and looked at it and tried to peel the paint off of it, and there's just no primer underneath there. It's just paint. It's got a bed too, like one of the like factory installed bed caps. It looks like complete doo doo, but it'd probably deter people from breaking into it or stealing it as well, which is kind of a nice thing. And I'm planning on driving that thing throughout the winter, and then I don't know if I'm gonna get another daily next year or if I'm just gonna keep driving the truck or if I'll make the truck a project as well. It depends on how much progress I make on this thing. Yeah, that was my original plan with my old one, was to weld the diff and take it out and try drifting in it, because that's kind of what I've thought about doing with the one I've got, but I don't want to do it until I have another daily to use. But yeah, basically, if you can get a 5-speed swap done on them and weld the diff, you're pretty much set to go. And you might want a handbrake on it. The most of the 5-speed Dakotas came with the AX15, or at least the 5-speed two-wheel Dakotas came with the AX15 transmission, which isn't known for being all that durable. But you can swap the NV3500, which came in the four-wheel drive 5-speed Dakotas, into it, because I think most of every 5-speed NV3500 Dakota I've seen has been a V8 powered Sport, which was four-wheel drive, which you could make two-wheel drive, but that would be quite a bit of work to go and drop everything out of the front and the rear end of it to swap it. And if you don't want to weld a diff on them, you can go and grab I think it's a 9¼ inch rear end out of a Durango, and it bolts directly in, and you can have limited slip from one of those. I think the welded diff would probably be more fun. I guess it depends on whether it's strictly a drift project or if it's supposed to be sort of a fun daily sort of deal. And they body roll like a bitch too, so one thing they got going for them is the two-wheel drive ones have rack and pinion steering like a normal car would have up front. I think that's part of the reason why people like using them for that. So they've got basically car suspension up front and then truck suspension in the back end. But people drift cars like Volvos and other stuff that have live axles in the back and do just fine. So I would think with the truck, as long as you can get rid of some of the body roll, you'd be pretty much good to go. Well, we're almost approaching an hour. I think at the hour mark, I'll probably close this up and get back to work on this thing. At least now I know how to use live. Really wanted to see if I could even get Wi-Fi to make it all the way out here, and it looks like as long as I have the doors open, I can get a good connection, or good enough. That was the old one, the green one that I turbocharged that I eventually wanted to drift. The one I've got right now is going to be a daily, at least for now. And if I decide to buy a new daily next year, I'll go ahead and make the truck I have now a drift project. But if I decide to keep that as a daily, I'll probably look for something else. Because I've thought about picking up like a V6 SN95 Mustang before they switched to the New Edge facelift, and getting one of those, because I could easily eventually swap a 5.0 into one of those and drift that. And those things sell for, I mean, around here they sell for probably $1,000 to $1,500 for one that runs and drives and just has mainly cosmetic issues. Or if I can find a Fox body in good shape, but the value's gone up on those. And there's not very many of them left around here that aren't rot boxes. I was gonna make that, let's see. Yeah, I'd look into that Fox body that they've got, especially if it's a good deal on one, because some people are starting to ask crazy numbers for them all of a sudden because of that stupid whatever happened at that Barrett Jackson auction. Everybody thinks they're worth way more than they actually are. You can still find the four-cylinder ones still sell pretty cheap, but clean GT models are starting to sell for $4 or $5 grand, whereas before you could have picked them up for probably 2,500 to $3 grand if you were patient enough to find one. Fox bodies are so much fun. Mine, the only thing that was really wrong with mine was that it had previous owners who didn't take care of it very well, and it was originally a four-cylinder car that was swapped out to have the 5.0 in it, and they cut a lot of corners, and I eventually got sick of it. And I blew the motor up in it, so I eventually just got rid of it. And I think I have a video on the channel of the engine knock it had, because the piston 1 and 5 had awful knock. Bring the comments back up. Yeah, Fox bodies are a lot of fun because it's about the lightest V8 powered car you can get, and they're super easy to work on, and the aftermarket support is definitely there. Plus, with it being the old 5.0, is that you can just swap a carburetor on it and toss the fuel injection in the trash if you really want, which helps if you're trying to swap one. And they're so simple. I mean, they're live axle. They don't even, like, the clutch is cable driven, not hydraulic. Yeah, the Fox body is definitely like kind of the ugly one of the Mustang family, aside from the Mustang 2. The look kind of grows on you after a while because they look so much different from all the other Mustangs. I think my favorite Fox body was probably the Thunderbird Turbo Coupe that had the real nice. They had such a clean front end on them. They were almost angry looking, but they weren't too aggressive looking. They were still kind of classed up like the Thunderbirds are supposed to be. The turbo that's going on this is from a Thunderbird Turbo Coupe, actually. It's that one that came with my Mustang when I bought it back originally. That came with all that other 2.3T stuff, and I got it rebuilt by a shop up here, and that's what's going on this. Be about the perfect size. It's a Garrett T3, and I mean, for a 2-liter engine to be about perfect size for this. I'd rather have the genuine Garrett turbo rather than go on eBay as well, which is kind of nice. I had a friend of mine who was selling, I think it was either 67 or a 69 Mustang, and it was the coupe, or I don't know, remember if it was a coupe or if it was a fastback, but it was originally had the 200 inline 6 in it, but I guess it locked up or threw a rod or something, so there was no engine in it, but they had the engine for it, and then it had a 4-speed manual trans that went with it. But I can't remember. And I thought about buying it because they only wanted like 2,500 for it, and it was a totally rust-free car. But I wouldn't have really done much with it other than put it together and just cruise in it. Because those things are so old school, especially with the front suspension and everything is that old Lincoln style stuff. It was a pretty cool car though. And we're at 58 minutes. You'll have to see, depending on when I actually finish this up tomorrow. I think I'll do another live stream trying to start it up for the first time. The rust on the Eclipse, they're actually, except for the towers, there isn't any other rust on this car. These, I'm just going to buy some sheet stock and patch these holes up. This one is really bad. Over here has some material. It looks like it was undercoated by a third party. And there's a little bit of rust back here, but you got to really look hard to find it. It's all full of rocks and stuff, but there's a tiny bit right here, but it's still, I can't even push my finger through where the rust is actually at. And I may come down here one day and patch that just to keep it from getting any worse. But the only significant rust are the two giant holes right up here. And that's it. Everything else is clean on it. My floors are still solid. I mean, the car's gutted inside. And there's no rust coming through. The driver's side floor is a little crunchy on top because it looks like it leaked water in there at one point, so all the bolts for the seats and stuff is locked in on that side, and they're always a pain to get out. Yeah, eventually I'm going to have to get to those. I haven't worried about them too much because they're still really sturdy. Yeah, the Mustang I had was actually an 88 LX that originally had the 4-banger. It was a 5-speed 4-cylinder and was swapped. It was that gray primered out one. Yeah, the towers are always the first thing to go on these cars. And I don't know what the reasoning for it is, why these things rust so bad. I got lucky and found one up here in Ohio that's not totally gone. I mean, aside from, because these towers are extremely easy to fix as long as you have enough there to actually rebuild them. If you got one where, you know, the road travels all the way down inside, you're kind of in trouble, but this one will clean. I found, like, that purple one that was in a video a while back, that thing was totally rust free. And I found one at the junkyard where the rear frame rails were held together like in one piece with a ratchet strap. And the ratchet strap was holding the two frame rails together and holding the fuel tank up. Yeah, I don't know. The junkyard I was in is in Toledo, Ohio, and if you're familiar with that area at all, it would make a lot more sense. Because some of the cars people drive around there are pretty trashed. But part of it's because the roads are junk up there too. That's where this car came from. Toledo is where the owner was at, and that's probably why all the suspension on this thing was so bad, or at least part of it. I think part of it was just neglect, and the other part of it was bad roads that tears up suspension pretty bad. We've hit 1 hour, so I think I'm going to go and get back to work on this. I'll see tomorrow where I get, because I definitely won't be finishing this whole thing tonight. Tomorrow I'll probably do another live stream either to update you guys or to try a first start if I'm that far when I get to it. But I'll try to do one sometime around, hopefully I can do it around like 6 or 7 in the afternoon so more people will get on. But I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys. So thank you. I think there's only the two of you still on here. Danny and Jamal, thank you for watching. Thank you to everybody else. If anybody else gets back on later and watches this whole thing, thanks for watching, and hopefully in the next few days I can get the official video for this install up. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you all in a little bit.